Hey, 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 welcome to another show of Heart-Centered Marketing. My name is Joey Ragona. You are who you are. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for being here on the replay, by the way. If you're on either of those, give us a like or a shout out or even a heart, or just put in hashtag live if you're here live with us, or hashtag replay, just so I can see who's coming up in the live and who's showing up in the replays, because we do like to see that. And I always go back and look at the replays, and if you have any questions, answers, or feedback or comments and all that kind of stuff, I'm still there for you. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting discussion because my friend Lorna is here with me. Hi, Lorna.
Hello.
Good to see you. I just saw you, what, an hour ago, 2 hours ago?
No. Yeah,
Something like that.
Tuesdays are wonderful with you.
Thank you. And you, and you, and you. And which kind of brings us to the topic of today, because we got to hang out with amazing people today with, my friend Nick Kuzmich, and just surrounding ourselves with amazing people like that. And I know you're in major masterminds. I'll let you drop some names of who the people that you're involved with as well. And just goes on and on and on. And I think that's the real idea of like today's topic of discussion is the influential circle and how important that is. So I'll let you take it away and see where this goes.
Oh gosh. Yeah, let me take it away. It just brought to mind today on the academy call with Nick, that how important it is to be surrounded by people who are um, just they have a different way of thinking. They have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and it's important to be around those people just to help you grow. I I recently I just have recently realized that how much the conversations are different with those people. And I've been in different masterminds over the years, from the personal development space with Jack Canfield, and
Yeah.
then with in product launch formula. I was in launch club for 3 years, and now I'm in Brian Kurtz's Titans Accelerator group, which is a group for people wanting to improve their copywriting. So there's like copywriters, there's course people, it's such a variety of people, which is one of the reasons I love the group. There's so many smart people
Yeah.
in there, and at the same time so many people I can help. And I believe that that's one of the key pieces, is to be in a group where there's people smarter than you that will give their hand up, and there's people who need your hand up.
Mm-hmm.
That it's important to be in both. It goes with that saying, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
And Bri-
you brought up a really good point here. Like on the other side of it, which we won't spend a lot of time on it, but I remember that when we're talking about, at least on our level of, or the way we look at it, I'm just going to speak for you. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like when we're going into the helping part of it, into a mastermind, it's truly to help somebody else, because we're on this journey, and first of all,
Mhm.
we're meeting people who are like us, and we always feel like we're aliens, and we're like feeling this journey is all by ourselves, and nobody really gets us until we get into a room of two people or 200 people that are like, holy crap, everybody else gets this, right? And but you're at a point of this journey where someone's ahead of you and someone's behind you, and it's our job, I believe, and I believe it's you agree, that we turn around and we hold a hand and help those other people to pull them along, not to sell them stuff. And the reason I'm saying this is because I remember that, actually, it was so funny because one of my very, very good friends now, one of my very first clients, I've talked about her before. She came to one of my very first masterminds. I was holding these things like once a month, and she looked at it as an opportunity to sell her stuff. When she first came into the room, she had no idea what a mastermind really, really was, but that was her intent. And believe it or not, I've heard this before, where people, I'm going to sign up to a mastermind because I know that there's like-minded people like me, so I can sell all my stuff. And that's not what we're talking about here.
No, no, it's not about selling. And what's interesting that happens, I think more business happens because you don't sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I found, is that when you take the time to truly get to know people, and what they're about, and you make those connections, and it happens in so many different ways that, whether you're helping them with, a beta cohort, or I helped someone with, they were piloting a mastermind group. So they were looking for some people to help them with the mastermind group. Well, I mean, that was a win-win for me, because not only was I able to help Teresa with her mastermind group, I got to participate in a mastermind with some amazing women who had brilliant information to help me. That's not why I went to help her at all.
Right.
I just
Right.
wanted to help her. Um, and yet got to make connections and got to know these women even better. That's it's yeah. I can't overemphasize how important those connections, and specifically, I have to give Brian Kurtz the like a real big, yeah, thank you, because his group has been it's very different than any of the other groups I've been in, and it's been very valuable for me for learning. It's
Yeah.
just, and it is so full. I mean, people will talk about, well, this group, everyone in the group is just wonderful. And, they're all helpful and everybody's good and wanting to help. And I've experienced that in some groups, like, and some, where I thought it was really good. This has been a whole different realm. I think because for me, and I'm not really trying to sell Titan's Accelerator, but if you want, talk to me. I went to learn more about copywriting and to learn more about online marketing and advertising. And that's why I joined the group. I first joined the Breakthrough Advertising Bootcamp, which is about Eugene Schwartz's Breakthrough Advertising book, which is like the Bible for online marketing. Get it if you don't have it. And, whatever happened during there just led me to that group. And I really, kind of didn't feel like I belonged to start with, because there's people they're just doing so many different things. But that's for me, and it won't be for everyone, but for me, that's one of the keys, is that I'm not locked into online marketing for online coaches or for course creators, which is
Yeah.
what I love to do. It's broadened my horizons on a whole pile of other things and opened my eyes to things that I wouldn't have been able to find on my own, because I would have to take courses and courses and courses and courses. So
Right.
it's like a shortcut.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a shortcut. And the connections that people have, like the when you have your 6 degrees of separation,
Yeah.
like the connections that come out of that group are huge. So um, I mean, that was one piece. And then, like, Nicholas's presentation today just again was, you know, your academy group is now like bringing that forth as well. So it's like every month, I can't believe that we're listening to these people. And, it's for me, it's a lot of thinking different and listening
Yeah.
to how they speak and what they talk about. And that even if it isn't relevant for what I'm doing today or this week or this month, just learning to think differently has been a key change for me in the last few months.
I love that. Love that. Thank you. Yeah, I want to piggyback on some of that you said there. Just want to give a shout out here to, I believe this is Collie, because this is her call, the Love and Soul
Yeah.
Hug. So nice to see you, Collie. And if you are watching us live, let us know with hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching the replay. And if you have any comments or questions or anything like that, please let us know, because we love to have the conversation back and forth. I wanted to pick up on a couple things that you said there. One is the fact that the different perspectives, the different insights, and the shortcuts to experiences and knowledge. And that's not even in the knowledge. It's more of how they're applying the things, the knowledge, and the shortcuts. And, Giovanni, which is I'm in, his synergy
Yeah.
group. And that's how the Academy all started for me. And Giovanni likes to talk about cheat codes, which I kind of stole, and I use that same thing. It's like, here's the cheat codes, and I'm going to help you get through to this next level. And, and also about connections. I really want to talk about connections, because Brian Kurtz is, I've been a friend of Brian for a little while, but you were actually the one who actually introduced us and put us together, and I really appreciate that. And and all these people that I'm bringing into Academy, again, all props go to Giovanni, because that's where I was able to connect with all of them. And one leads to the next, and it up levels. At least for me, it's up leveling Academy, which is something that I really want to do, and I really want to bring that knowledge. Again, I keep saying the word knowledge, but it's more of the insights and perspectives and what Nick talked about today, and just shortcuts everything. It just condenses time. It's like, holy crap, and if I just follow this thing, I can get there faster. It's like a condense of time. It's just incredible. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've always respected and understood the power of buying your way into rooms, buying your way into people that are far ahead of you, that are willing to share on that level. Like Nick was there for almost 2 hours today with us. These are people that are in, $50,000, $100,000 mastermind. You heard how much he charges to get one-on-one coaching with him. And we
Yeah.
had him, right? We had him for almost 2 hours. And it wasn't a presentation where you can't talk to the person. That to me is worth everything. Just to be able to pick someone's brain. I hate using that analogy,
Yeah.
but it's like, and no holds barred. This is why the influential circle is so important to me. What about you?
Yeah. Oh, some days I wish I could argue with you because it's sometimes more fun, but I can't argue with you on that one. And um, it goes back to, I'll quit talking about Brian yet today, but it's where I learned it first. I don't know that he's, the originator. I have no idea. But it's at least where I finally heard it, even if I didn't hear it before, was to building the relationship capital.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that can happen in those groups. And I think it can happen it a little easier because you're in a group of people, so you get to figure out who you connect with and start to build those relationships. If you try to, like, there's no way in the world that well, I shouldn't say that because I have made some pretty good connections, but I did require introductions, and that's part of the thing. But um, it's not like I'm going to be able to just cold message Nicholas and say, "Hey, I want to hear more about fast tracking. Like, what can you tell me?" And he's going to respond to me on Messenger, and I'm going to start building. Like, I could never build a relationship with him
Mm-hmm.
that way.
Mm-hmm.
You had Alex Sharfin on, and it's not like I feel like I'm building this super tight relationship with him right now, but there was steps building towards that, a
Right.
thank you message after the call saying thank you for the call, and I'm in his group. And so I don't have any you know I don't have a plan. Like, there's no devious plan that I'm going to build this relationship with Alex, and this, I don't have any of that.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But I do know that he's a good person to be connected with, and that he can help influence my life. And I don't know whether it's going to be more than what it is now or not. But that's going to take a lot longer than if I sat with him in a mastermind group every week or twice a month. Like, that's a longer process. And yet you can be connected. You've proven that, Joey. Like, you can be connected with these people
Yeah.
by, for the sake of what you said, buying yourself into the room.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going to come from that. But there's a lot of good ways to build relationships with people, and not just these people who we aspire to.
Right.
Good people who are just like us, going day to day, working in our business, who can help us. On a recent call, mastermind call I was on, somebody was wanting to. This is a sports thing, so I don't always get sports um, anymore. And they were wanting to reach the quarterback of whoever, the quarterback that blew his Achilles heel or hamstring or something. Anyway, this was a guy who's a healer, and he wanted to, he was trying to get at this player so that he could prove, because he I mean, he's 100% committed to what he can do, would heal this person a lot faster than traditional medicine. And I think that we, in that call, got down to like just about a 2-degree separation of being able
Mm-hmm.
to connect him with someone who could penetrate the wall that's around this NFL player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you can't do that by yourself.
Right.
Like you can't, you just can't do that on your own. You need people around you. And if you're going to have people around you, you may as well have people who are willing to help and connect you in certain ways. And again, not to say there's a devious plan to join a group to get connected.
That's right.
That's
That's right.
that's not. I mean, it's just to say that there's a benefit there of being around people who
Yeah.
expand your world, expand your your what you see in the world. Because I don't know about you, I sit in this office and I don't see very much
Right.
outside of my office.
Yeah. That's the whole
So
point. That's the whole point. I mean, you brought up again. There's so many things I could bounce off of here, and I'll try to remember them because my ADD is going crazy here. And one of the things you said was about the devious plan of like being connected, and this is one of the reasons, or the brilliance of people, the high level of people, of who's in the group, and all these other things. And that's one of the reasons why, I don't really want to promote like who's coming to Academy every single month, like outside of the group. Every once in a while I might share, and this is some great stuff, but I don't want people to join because of that. Like I want people to have the level that we're talking about here, the mindset of what the group is about, not who's in it. And I think that's one of the wrong questions to ask. If you say, I got this mastermind and here's it's gonna help you, like, just for the lack of a better term, it's gonna actually help you grow your business and save you a whole bunch of time, like whatever. Okay, that's the premise, right? Maybe it's not the best one. But the first question is who's in it is the wrong question, because it's like, well, why are you coming? Like, doesn't the thing automatically want you to gravitate toward this if I could save you all of this time? And here's one of the things that I learned about being in them, because I wanted to get into them so early, and I was blessed to do that in 2012. And I remember that I talk about this on a lot in marketing. I used to use this analogy a lot, and maybe I'll start using it even more. And it's not an analogy, it's an actual truth. But when we're talking about the now it's escaped me. Oh, the unfair advantage. Like, when you're looking at the, your unique processes and all this other stuff, and what's the unfair advantage that you have over everybody else, right? And I always knew that the unfair advantage I had was being in the rooms with the people that I could directly talk to, like Nick today. Okay, so let's say, for example, that Nick had a course on whatever, all the stuff he talked about today. You could buy his course and you could learn the stuff, and maybe you go into his coaching thing afterwards, like, and has a Q&A and all that, and that's fantastic, right? However, when you're in a mastermind with them, you shortcut all of it, because you can just ask one direct question that is related to what you're looking for. Like, he even talked about just-in-time learning, right? So if you have a question that is related to whatever that expert is talking about, or that person, you can just skip the whole entire thing and just jump to and fast forward to the part you need help with, and they're like, here's how you do this, or here's the answer. And to me, that is way more valuable. Not to say that being in someone's coaching program or their programs and all this is not valuable, but the fact that you have that personal relationship, it doesn't matter. I'm not talking just about high-level people and experts. I'm talking about anybody in that room. That is the power, because someone has a cheat code. Someone has been through it to say, you don't need to do that. Here's what I did. There you go. Because if at that level, everyone is there to share. They're not there to get business. And sometimes, business happens, transactions happen back and forth, but it's more like, I've been in them for a long time, and I see it every single week. I see this, that people are just open to share everything. They hold nothing back. And that is the power. That's what the ROI is. You're saving the time and effort to have to go through a program and figure it all out yourself, as opposed to, let me just ask this question. I'll show up on Tuesday, 3:00. I know this person's going to be there. I'm just going to ask this question. boom, get your question answered, continue to move on.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Again, I wish I could argue with you. I can't because, and I think there's a place for both things. I mean, we don't want to stop learning. Like we don't want to
No.
stop. Like I don't know whether we need to take all. I don't need to take all the courses that I've bought, and that was interesting. Nicholas said, without help and support, what's the likelihood of me completing a course in a week without
Yeah.
having some accountability? And I said 5%, and he said I was high. So compared to
I
other
was
people.
surprised to hear that answer too, but yeah.
Well, there is something. If someone was pushing me and I paid the money and there was a good reward at the end, then I would likely do it in a week. But
Mm-hmm.
there'd have to be, the magic formula to make that happen. But I don't want to discount, the need to learn. But if that's all we count on, then most of us are left with this information that we don't fully grasp, even if we finish the course. And it highlights the things that are missing that we don't understand, and maybe don't have even know that exist that could help us with that. Where you get the people in the room and they have that, that information. And you mentioned, at that question of like who's in the room, and I thought about it when it comes to Titans Excel, and is if I'd asked who was in the room and that was what was important to me, I would never have joined, because I can't say that there's really anyone there that would have, I'm not starstruck by anyone. They're look like regular people. I don't even know like half the industries that some of the people are in. Um, but there's a lot of smart people, and I think that's what opened my world, is that, you know, thank you for the gurus that I've had in my life, like Jeff Walker and Ryan Levesque and Russell Brunson and, and Joey Ragona.
Wow.
you
Great to be mentioned
know,
among those superstars, but thank you.
yeah, the Ryan Dice, like there's all those people that I've learned from. So there weren't those names in that room, but there's a lot of people in those rooms who are making $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
millions of
Mm-hmm.
dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And there's lots of people who haven't made like maybe haven't made a dime in the time they've been there, in the last few months. It's a variety. But those people who maybe aren't even making millions of dollars still know things. I think the guy that was connected to this sports player, somehow he does tutoring, and somehow he was doing some tutoring for this person that he like it was a weird connection. You would just never know why that happens. So asking who's there is not the most important
Right.
question,
And wait a
because
minute.
it misses a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to, before I forget this. That was the other point, was one thing I learned. I think it was the first mastermind for sure, and I might have told you this story privately, and not that I'm hiding anything, but I think it was Todd Brown, and he was a big name then. He's still a big name now, but I remember him getting up at the mastermind, and no, it actually wasn't a mastermind. It was actually the seminar before the private mastermind. Anyway, he got up and he did a talk about him and Mike Filsaime, and he said, these are the most important events because you meet the future expert guru, and they're sitting right
Mhm.
beside you. They're sitting in this room, and I'll never forget that because, yeah, sometimes we go, and I get starstruck. I love meeting meeting
Yeah.
people like that. I love that. But at the same time, I respect them and I'm learning from them. I'm not just like, hey, let me take a selfie. This is fantastic and all that. I want to learn from them, and I'm always open to new perspectives. But I really took that to heart because it was like, yeah, maybe the person next to me is a nobody at this point. But imagine if we became best friends, and 10 years from now, that person is now the go-to person,
Yeah.
and we're best friends, and that's how it all happened because he shared the story of how him and Mike Filsaime became best friends. So that's what these rooms are about. They have all of these superstars. They're just unknown to maybe the world. They're not the Tony Robbins. They're not the Ryan Levesques, right? They're not the Jeff Walkers at this point. But it doesn't mean they have no value. And in fact, I think there's a lot more hidden experts than there are public experts that everybody
Yeah,
knows. They just stay
absolutely.
behind the scenes.
Absolutely. I agree. Like, and I think that's, in that, well, likely it happened in Launch Club. I was in a different frame of mind doing different things of my own at that time. There was lots of great people who, they're superstars in their own market. You
Yes.
know, they're, they're just because I'm not in that market doesn't mean they're not superstars. And the thing is that, at what we talked about at the beginning was it's not just about how they can all help us, but we're superstars to somebody in there
Mm-hmm.
too. Like there's pieces of what we do that people see and acknowledge as something that's valuable for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just by being yourself. It's not like I don't want to ever make it sound like there's any devious plan or, you know, I don't think there's anything more to say about how you get the most out of your mastermind is to go and listen, be willing to be vulnerable, asking your question. And if there's one tip, depending on how the masterminds work, but if you're in a mastermind where there's a chance where you have a hot seat kind of thing, or a, spotlight, whatever it is that you get to ask your question. I mean, the biggest key to making that valuable is ask your question. If anyone needs clarity, give them a brief answer, the briefest you can give, so that they can respond, and then sit there and shut up and listen. And just make sure you've got it recorded so you can go back to what's there. But I see, now I'm off on my own little tangent.
That's
I
okay.
feel like a real, I feel like a real marketer now because I'm off on a tangent.
Good.
Uh, they, it. I see so many people who will have like 12 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes of this spotlight or hot seat where they have some of the most brilliant people there. They have people with a whole pile of other experience that they may not even know about that can help them. And they take, you know, 14 minutes out of 20 to talk themselves. Like it's a shame. If there's one thing I learned about masterminds from Jack Canfield, that was it. When you're in the hot seat, like brief, give your problem or ask your question, and then shut up and let the other people talk. And
Yeah,
if they have
and
questions, answer. But
yeah, and that's
anyway,
one of the things when I started doing this as well, because I can't, we had a 50-minute timer, and it was a physical timer that you'd see, and I'd start at physical timer. And you're right, absolutely, I can't tell you how many times, and I would start every conversation the same way, like because I would actually give them prompts. Here's the sheet. Answer these questions in the shortest amount time possible. And actually, you gave it to them before. So prep for
mm-hmm.
this so that you only take 5 minutes of your 50 minutes but it would take them 35 minutes to 40 minutes. No word of a lie, all the time. And they would have 10 minutes left. And I would just say, you've wasted all of this gift for you because you have these people who are willing and able to help you, but all you did is try to explain the stories. We don't need the stories, but that's just the human nature I find. And I'm trying
Yeah,
to help people. Everybody wants to share like how they got there. I don't need to hear that, especially as a coach for what I do. My brilliance is I don't need to hear that, and if I do, like you said, I'll ask for clarity on some point. But it's understanding like how that works and letting that person or taking advantage in a good way of the people that are there to help you. It does no
yeah.
good when you're talking.
No, no, and I've seen many where they then they get into the arguments and they get into the. But I tried that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not that I haven't been there at times, but it's just something that I had the I was privileged enough to, I guess, I don't know with that, lucky enough, whatever it is, to learn that piece and to learn that you don't have to take, like, let them talk. You don't have to take every suggestion. You don't even have to agree with
Yeah,
every suggestion.
right.
But the more you talk when you are in that, in a hot seat, the less information you're going to get back. And it's
Yeah.
hard because I'm a storyteller. I go on and on. I mean, and I believe if I can figure out how to make it shorter and more precise, and I can sit there and shut up for the time that anybody can.
It's more powerful, Lorna, actually coming from the coaching side of it, because I've been through this for so long and trying to get people to be concise. It's so much more powerful when you ask a shorter question that
Yeah.
I don't know what the context is for me to say, can you explain a little bit more on that one? Rather than trying to sit through someone telling a story, or here's how I got here, let me tell you the backstory, and then waiting to try to get in there and give the advice or ask more questions to get more clarity. It's so much easier for anybody listening. If you're in any kind of influential circle, the reason you're there is to not only help somebody else when they ask a question, but if you're in that position that you're wanting to get some advice and help, to be very concise, because people like talking, right? Especially experts, or people, like at least the people that I know, all the people I'm bringing into academy, all the people, they want to give. Look at Alex. Like, look at just the dedication and every single person I've brought in so far, the dedication that they have to the entrepreneur world to bring us to the next level, to help. You said you're in Alex's group, right? Did you happen to see his video that he just posted in his group
Yeah.
an hour ago?
Yeah, I did.
Right? Like, listen to that passion.
Yeah.
Listen to that passion. And this is
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. So they're there to help you. They're there to, like you said, ask me a quick question and I'll tell you. But they're
Yeah.
also respectful, and they're just going to let you talk. If you want to talk, go ahead and talk, but that's not going to do you any good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a fine balance. Um,
Yeah.
and not, I mean, I guess when we talk about masterminds, we're, there's a few different ways of doing masterminds. My next tangent is
Okay.
because the like my first exposure to masterminds was from Jack Canfield, which is it's basically a small accountability group. So like 6 to 8 people max. You try to do it. You have a meeting and you do it within like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Most I found, if we have six, like if we have five, we can often do it in an hour. Any more than five, we usually end up being an hour and a quarter.
Right.
So that was my first exposure to the mastermind idea. And it comes, I mean, the history that goes back to, like to Henry Ford and,
Mm-hmm.
back to the US
Napoleon Hill.
presidents. Yeah,
Yep.
Napoleon Hill. And, even looking back at um, Benjamin Franklin and like back into those groups where they like mind trust is what many of them called it, right? Um, so I think that's one kind of like that's where I learned mastermind was that small group, and it has a specific process with the hot seats and how you communicate through that. And the ones that I use have a set agenda on what we go through. Um, and then there's the bigger masterminds that are larger, like your academy. I don't know how many people are in academy. It would be likely, it's a growing one.
Yep.
And then like Launch Club was 150 people. Titans XL is um, I don't know, 300 some people that are something like that. I don't know. They're not, and like all other groups, they're not everyone's active. And some because they're really busy off making doing their thing.
Yeah.
Um, but it's, so I think there's different kinds of masterminds. So would be important to know, what you need, like what are you looking for specifically? And then whether or not you want to be in a mastermind where everybody's on the same page, because being in a mastermind, for me, the difference between Launch Club is that in Launch Club, um, everyone's following product launch formula, so that's the basis of that, and all the conversations are around Jeff's program and what he's learned, and you know kind of you get the inside pieces, you get more depth, that's what you get beyond the course.
Yeah.
Or something like an academy, we're all business minded, not everyone's online, some are offline, some maybe switching from one to another, but it's business focused. like it's all focused on business. And, Titans XL is copywriting is kind of the basis that gets people in. And that's mostly what, it's still the primary reason for there. And it will all go back to a lot of the copywriting and, certainly sharing lots of what's been learned from some of the best copywriters in the world that have existed. And yet there's such a variety of people and experience that it gives a different flavor and fills a different need for me. Well, I
Right.
think it's important to figure out what it is that you need. When it comes to the smaller accountability groups, I've been in one in through when I was in Stu McLaren's coaching group that was above tribe. Then we did accountability. He had accountability groups there, and so that was kind of, so the premise was all around memberships. Like that was all around memberships. But most of the small groups I've been with have a variety of people as well. So the
Yeah.
one we just stopped, the group just stopped recently after running for like 2.5 years. So there was an accountant from Ontario. He owned his own practice, accounting practice, an IT wizard in the health care industry who was working out of Norway at the time, a painter from Colorado, um, a cake and pastry person, up level things in the UK, and one who was finding his way, and he's done a different things. He's now a shaman, and me with the online marketing piece. And for a brief time, we had a neuroscientist. She does a lot of health stuff. She didn't stay long. She's off doing her own things. So, like, nothing in common except that we took, a 4-month little course thing from Jack Canfield in 2021. But the power that came within that group of being able to help other people was
Yeah.
amazing. And it just points out the power that you don't always have to be with people that are doing the same thing, that there is value in hearing from other people's perspectives because their perspectives are different.
Yeah, and I
Um,
want to pick up on that because you've said it. It's come up a couple of times, and I've it gone out of my head, so I don't want to forget it this time. That was one of the main things that I had to learn with my first mastermind because I went in with a closed mind. I was looking for, and I was paying a lot of money back then. It was $20,000 to see them 4 times a year, so it was a lot of money. And it was like I went in with this closed mind, thinking that there was like a fisherman, a dude who's the major fisher people, like whatever it is, like the fishing industry and other industries, like all these other industries. And a couple of them were in the same industry as I was. And those are the only people that I really listened to when they were talking, but the other ones I zoned out. And I'll never forget, Greg said, take Greg was my friend, and he was the first coach I had. But he said you have to listen to other people's industries, not only because you could steal from their industries and bring it to yours, which is another huge thing when you're in a group like you just mentioned, from something that a painter could do. Imagine you brought whatever that productivity tip or whatever it was that you could bring to your own world and go, huh, maybe I could do that, or maybe I could teach that. Like, that's the brilliance of having so many different levels of people in there, because if you're open to it, and I think that's the biggest challenge with many people is, and including me, because my hand is up, I'm guilty of this. It was like I wasn't open to hearing anything except for within my little bubble. And that's the other thing I want to discuss here is when you are in your own bubble, that's a very small little place to be, because you can't grow outside of that. It's very hard to grow. And by the way, just before you respond, Lorna, if you're here live, let us know, #live or #replay. But more importantly, let us know what your comments are, or if you have a question or if some feedback. We'd love to hear from you and have this conversation going, because we'd love to answer questions that you have about an influential circle, masterminds, anything like that, anything to do with the business growth. Back to you,
yeah.
Lorna.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I'm sure that there's many people who are watching this, whether live or replay, who have had experience of some kind,
Yeah.
and whether it was called mastermind group or something different, they've been around a group of people and been able to learn. But that, yeah, I mean, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and I'm the same. Like I can remember sitting, whether it was in Launch Club or any other place, sometimes when you just go, oh, they're talking again. Like, how many times do they ask that same question and they just won't take the answer? Like, and then you shut yourself off.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and now I wonder, like, how many nuggets of brilliance did I miss because I had that thought that I didn't, I don't need to hear this anymore. I've already figured it out. I think those are some of the most dangerous things to think about, is that I know enough already, or I know, even if I know enough already for where I am now.
But wouldn't you say, okay, going back to you first started the conversation, that if you're the smartest person in the room, isn't that an indicator that you're in the wrong room?
If you are the smartest person in the room, but I think there's a difference between, if you go and truly there isn't anything new, then you're in the wrong room.
Yeah,
And if you're the only person, like if there's no one who can give you some answers, if there's no one that you feel you can go to and ask a question that's going to help elevate you, or give you, I mean, sometimes it's not anything big. You've mentioned it before, Joey. Like, sometimes it's just the nugget
hmm,
that is one thing that, just turn the screw a quarter of an inch this way,
that's
and
right.
it's a little tighter, and now you've got, or it's the, your plane is like just 10 degrees off, and somebody gives you the 10 degrees to get back where you're supposed to go, so you don't crash and burn. um, so the if there's no one that can, like, truly no one that has any answers, and you become the go-to person, like, where you are giving, 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 and there really isn't anything coming back, then maybe you are the smartest person in the room, and it's the wrong room.
Yeah,
But I think that we can easily get into a mindset of, I already know this. I don't need to listen. And maybe not to everything, but to some things, like hearing someone else's hot seat. There was a hot seat with a guy, and he does some kind of fabulous parking lot paving. Like, I don't know, like, he creates magnificent parking lots. I don't really know what he does, but it's quite the thing. Like, what do I know about parking lots? Like, who cares? Like, and yet, if I don't listen to what everyone else is is sharing with him, then I likely miss out on something that does help me.
sure.
So, and I know I've done that. I know that I've, like, shut off, and I mean, totally vulnerable. It drives me crazy to have people ask the same question over and over and over and over, and get the same answer over and over and over. And yet I likely have
Well,
done
yeah,
that and realized it. It's, I've got a lot more patience now than I used to. I just know that I'm not unique or special. I'm not the only one that shuts their ears off at times.
no, you're right. Like along with being that way too, I remember that I was shut off, but now I open my ears a little bit more. But I recognize that I'm a what if person. Like, there's the people that everybody learns differently, or it's not really learning what they're there for, in terms of why are they showing up to this thing. And I am that what if person. I'm like the last person on the list of like, I don't even, the hierarchy. I can't say that word, of people. So there's the person is like, why am I here? Explain his why should I sit here and listen to this mastermind? Then there's the what am I going to learn from this? Like, what are you going to talk about today? Then there's the how person, like, which is like, okay, well, you talked about all this stuff, like, how am I going to use this? And then there's the what if person, which is me, which is the what if person is like, okay, what if I take what all of you have just said and the one little thing and apply it to my business. What if I do that? So I'm looking for that nugget. I'm listening actively for that
Yeah.
one thing, and then I shut off. Like once I hear that, I'm like, okay, that I'm
Oh,
good, and I'm out, and I'm like physically or even mentally out of the room because I'm going to apply it. Because not only I'm a what if, I'm an implementer. So like I'm impatient. So I'm like, I don't want to wait. This is brilliant. What did I tell you about Nick today? Like we were just talking just before the call, and he said, "Oh, you know what? I'm gonna go do it exactly what he said. Now I'm gonna change this and go do that." Right. So it's like I got the nugget. Brilliant. I'm not gonna wait. So I think that
so
I don't know why I went on the tangent, but I think maybe you have something to add to that one.
my question is, what if there were 2 nuggets for you that
It's
day
it,
and you missed the
true,
second one?
true. Like yeah, it all depends on the context. I mean, for me, in the environment that I was in, there was always the 50 minute. There would always, not always, but more often than not, there would be the one nugget, and then we would break. So it would allow me to do what I had to go do. It wasn't like back to back to back to back.
Yeah.
So then it would be like, oh, okay, and then I would either journal or I'd actually go on my computer or my phone, like do something that initiated the thought or that nugget, and then it freed my brain. Because if I don't, if that's just the way my brain works, I can't let things go. So if I didn't do something or the action within that 10 minute or whatever the break was, 15 minutes, the next hour would be a waste because my brain would be focused on remember to do that thing, remember to do that thing. Even if I wrote it down, I'd be like, you're going to forget this.
That's
That's just how my
interesting.
brain works. That's why I can't let things go. That's why I have, and this is a whole other topic, but this is where the conversation is going. But that's why some things that are non-priority for me, I can't let it go. Like so I'm trying to even get out of that zone of it. Like no, this is what's a better way for me to let those things go, and who can teach me to let those things, like all those things. So now again we're back to the who, which even Nicholas talked about, right? Like who
Yeah.
can help me with this, and what are you doing to help you? The example is Notion. Who did I go to? Marie Poulin, right? Like I gave every credit to her. So who can help me that understands my brain, that can help me to fix this other problem that I have, which is Joey, you don't know how to prioritize. You're fantastic, but you're not prioritizing because you have this block in your brain that says go do that, which is a good part, but it's also kryptonite. There's a whole
Yeah.
bunch of stuff that was in that
Well,
little
but the you
blurb,
know,
but
you often talk about being ADD.
yeah.
So there is something to take into account, I think, for how you manage that, um, because some of those behaviors likely have something that to do with
Hmm.
that. So for you, is there, um, I think it's maybe managing it more. Like maybe you have some of those skills, and it's just like whether you need another person to help you with that. You could likely learn it if you wanted to, but again, that goes back to a little bit about, well, that you go to a mastermind because you want the shortcut, so you can manage it yourself. The distractions, you can have somebody help teach you, or you can help bring in the who to just do it for you, um, and figure it out, or to message you and say, Joey,
Yeah.
see, you maybe need to go on that whole accountability thing that I talked about on the academy call, or call a productivity piece. It's about like just being like the being on a Zoom call, like with however many people are in there for like the 50-minute time block, and just having to be on Zoom knowing somebody's watching whether or not you're
Exactly.
working
Exactly.
has, you know that was the guy's thing. The webinar guy, that was his thing. And whatever, it's hard to tell by a webinar. He says he's doing really, really well. Yeah, a good model, but it is finding what works for you. And some of those answers could come from a mastermind, whether it's a big one or a small one, or it comes from just asking people how to do it.
Well, the So let's go back to circle back to the influential and then why the importance of it, because
Yeah,
we're talking a
please.
lot about mastermind models and all these other kind of things. But that's so why, like, in a short sentence, like, why is it really important to you to have those the circle around you? What would you say to somebody if somebody said, why should I join a mastermind?
Uh, I would join a mastermind so that I could learn how to think differently and to be open, like have my world open
Why do you want to think
to
differently?
why do I want to, because I don't think that, oh, you're going to 7 layers deep me, aren't you? Um,
See,
you
you're
can't,
analyzing, but you're not answering the question, right?
that's called avoidance.
Yeah.
Um, so why is it important for me to think differently? Because I found that the way that I think on my own has not led me to great decisions.
Okay.
It's limited the information that I bring in to be able to make those decisions. So, and it opened my world to new, like new opportunities. Um,
So, what was the point when you decided that that was the point or that was the route for you? Because you're talking in past tense right now, but when I'm trying to bring you back to the point where you said for anybody, because anybody listening to this, they're like, well, I don't need a mastermind right now. I'm not making enough money for it, or whatever the excuses are of not to do it. What was the point for you to say, I need to think differently?
okay, that's kind of a domino thing that kind of started in a mastermind that didn't end in a
So
mastermind.
in other words, you were exposed to a mastermind and you saw the power of it because you joined a program and the mastermind was part of it. And then you said, holy crap, this is amazing.
Well, I think there's a difference, a little bit of a difference experience because the one that was like the marketing, the PLF mastermind group, um,
Was that your first mastermind?
a large one, yeah, not a small one. I've been in small ones, small accountability groups all along. So that, I mean, that basic at that time, and even up to the one that I was just in up to a couple of weeks ago, that's always been about thinking differently because they were different people. And I've not, most of them came from different industries, different experiences, different backgrounds. So there always was something, but I don't know that I identified that totally in the same way that I identify thinking differently now.
Okay.
Um, but I would think the Launch Club was more about the knowledge and the skills. So, yeah, that's all about thinking differently, but it's different for me now, um, because, and you are a domino in this as well, because you talk about doing things differently and thinking differently. And eventually, what happened was in the Titans group, which, it was unexpected for me to see how many different people were there at the time. Like that, I didn't go because there was that many different people. I didn't know that at the time. So I've learned, like, it's by listening to their conversations and just sometimes being exposed without an interaction that helps me think differently. But it was getting connected to Rich Jeffrin and having the opportunity to work with him as his client that has really shown me how important it is to think differently and um, how I haven't been for 10 years that I've been doing this, that I haven't thought. I've had one train of thought that I thought I was pretty good at business and realized that I was off the rails, likely for the last 5 or 6 years, in how I thought about business,
So yeah,
not about
it was
marketing.
exposure to you then. So it was more of a domino
But
thing. It wasn't a choice.
yeah, it but that's why I'm so adamant, not because somebody might get connected with somebody else. I think those conversations were happening around me already and I
Sure.
just didn't know, and that was just the time where it came to me. But now that I have that experience, I hear differently. And if somebody else can get that, without having to gone through what I went through. Like, I just think it's so important. Like, it's just so key. And you don't get that sitting in your own office. You don't get that in your own little world. You might have, and whether it's a mastermind, I mean, we've talked about circle of influential people, and we've really focused on masterminds because that's one of the best places for it.
Yeah.
But it can happen by having your own one-on-one coach. It can happen by having a group coach. You still have other people in that world who can help you, and you can that think differently if you're open to thinking differently.
Yeah, I think that
Uh,
that's the biggest. That's the big. I think that's the operative word, is if you're open to it, because I find that when like I find I don't know how to even explain this the right way, but it's kind of like I don't know how to explain this. It's kind of like the level of my how do I say this? When I go into a room that people are far beyond where I am, I like that because my vulnerability shines through more. Like, I go in, I'm and not vulnerability, but I'm more humble. Let's put it that way. So I'm open to listening. So instead of me going in defensively, which I used to go, like tell me something I don't know, right? Which with Greg and like, yeah, what am I here for? Just tell me something I don't know. Now it's more like okay, wait a minute. I'm nowhere close to these people. And I know, and see, I'm trying to say this in the right way where it's not like, don't judge yourself. Don't put other people on pedestals and all that, because that's not the right thing to do either.
no, no.
But at the same time, maybe it's more of a respect. Is like, okay, they have a little bit more knowledge in this area or experience and expertise. So I'm just gonna back off a little bit here and be more humble and listen to what they're saying. And that opens my brain to say, okay, I've never thought of it that way before, as opposed to me thinking, that's fantastic. It might work for you, but it doesn't work for me because I've tried that before, or I've tried a piece of that. So tell me something I don't know. Attitude, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I like paying to get into rooms where, like, we'll call them superstars or starstruck and all those kind of rooms. To me is really powerful. That's why I like bringing Nick and Alex and all these guys in, is because they humble me a lot. But we're friends still. Like, we're still on that same level, and maybe not in the same terms of like the revenues and all these other things, because I'm nowhere near what Nick is making in the revenues. But that's not a measure of really success. It's more of,
Yeah.
it's like I'm still I still yeah, it's kind of this. I don't know. Like you're like with Rich, like the same thing. Like I'm sure you looked at Rich differently than when you do it now. 6 months ago, as opposed to now, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. You're at a different level with Rich and Brian and all these, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So I'm sure you can speak to him on a friend level, and then once he begins to coach you and everything, you again, the word is not the right word, is like lower. It's not, but it's like you settle back in. You're like, okay, you settle in the comfort chair, and you're like, tell me, like, let me absorb this. Am I right? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's, like it's amazing. And I don't know if I mean, I've never worked with a coach at the level of Rich, like and his experience. So I don't really have anything to compare to, but there, I mean, he is a friend. Like, he is a
Hmm.
friend. And he's not a friend that I text 4 times a day to just, say, hey, here's a funny meme. Like, I've kind
Yeah.
of, he that's not the kind of friend. But there is, you know, he doesn't hesitate to share kind of what's going on in his life and what's happened, and what has happened in his life to help him learn what he learned that he's now sharing with others. And but when it comes to the business work, like it's it's business.
Right, right,
And I have sometimes have to stop myself to make sure that I, like, this is where I'm still learning with him, is to make sure that I stop talking and listen. Because sometimes I go off on my own tangents. When we have done a lot of work on like just self development and talked a lot about psychology, which is a little bit dangerous for us because we both love it, and we could talk about that all day long. Yet, that's really not, that's not where we're supposed to get to. But we've learned a lot about each other, I think, through that. Um, and I mean, it's such a valuable experience for me, and I still shake my head just about every day to convince myself again that it's happening. Um, and it isn't that ever, again, I never went into a group expecting that. I do have, I do have this thing about asking, which is sort of off the track of masterminds. And, I think it might be principle, I don't know, 67. I can't remember the number, in Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles, about ask, ask, ask. And, I've made some big asks in, you know, in my life, but most of the time I had to be connected to them in some way, introduced. They've happened, and sometimes you just have to do asks, and that goes back to the relationship capital. You can't just ask out of the blue.
right, right.
And you don't build relationships. Like, I did not see any of that coming, and it just happened. But it happened because I was in part of a group,
That's right.
and I paid to get in there.
That's right.
And I mean, this group this group is not a high paying group. Like, when you talk about masterminds, this is not high paying at all. Like,
Right.
it's less, it's, so the value that comes, but it's not just that connection. It's the connection with other people who are there, who are, some are higher level in some places and some aren't. And there's still ways to help. They help me, I help them. That community, much like yours, Joey, is very much, like, you can ask for help, but you want to give help.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to offer and be able to support other people and just be happy for where they are. There's no competition on who's doing, like, there's no winning
Yeah.
in anything. Like, you get your own wins, but there's no competition. And I mean, those are the communities that I gravitate to. I don't want to be in competition. I want to be able to I want to be able to help and serve and be of value. And I also want to be able to be helped. And to be honest, I mean, I knew I could likely help that group, but I wasn't really, like, I'll be honest, that particular group, I wasn't really thinking a lot about how I was going to serve them. I just recognized it was something that was missing in my life.
Yeah, that's
Um,
important to know though, Lorna. Like it's like, I realize that where, when you're going into a group, you're wanting to get help, and that's the whole point, is to be open to that help. But sometimes, as you said before, some people don't open their minds, so they're not getting the help, and they just want to be there to, I don't know, talk about themselves or complain too much and have like this sounding board. And that's okay too, because there are pieces of these influential circles where they're there to be the sounding board, right? They're there to help, but that's where,
yeah.
again, they're there to go like, I get you. I remember Cameron Harold sharing a story about the Genius Network or something, where dude got up and told a story about how his whole life burnt down, literally his house and everything burnt down and all that. And he was like devastated. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then some person stood up and said, you're in the best place ever. Right. And everything is gone. Everything's gone. Like, and he's like, how can you say that? How could you say that I'm in the best place possible? And it was more of, it was basically, I'm totally messing this whole story up, but the gist of it is, you know what it feels like to be there. And now you're going to build yourself up and you can show everybody else and bring everybody else who's at the same place as you. Not literally that I'm going to help people who other houses burn down, right? But literally, you have been in the worst place possible, and now you know how it feels, and all the way up, you're going to know the stages of what it feels like, so you can help more people, which is what you're here to do in the first place. So it was a different reframe of everything, and I think that when you have, it's not that it's magic. It's like, oh, fantastic, you're right. I'm
Yeah.
right. It's not that, but it's that kind of level where when you get those perspectives of somebody and you're open to hearing it, you're like, you're absolutely right. Like, yeah, maybe I should look at this in a different way. And as a matter of fact, this brings me back to the moment when Greg Hapster, which is my first coach, and I heard him about 2 years before I hired him, and I heard him on stage. My dad just passed away, and he was on stage, and he said he was doing a whole thing about something, and then he said, "You know what? Out of every tragedy, no matter what it is, there's always a silver lining. There's always a positive, always." And my dad just passed, right? And I looked at him and I thought, "You're insane. Like how what could possibly be good about this?" But he was right, and I reference back to that because I wasn't ready to hear that at that point. But today, I truly believe it. And I even tell other people that. I'm like, you know what? I know what you're going through, no matter what it is. And there's always a silver line. There's always a positive. And every time I say that to people, and even to my wife, we talk about this all the time or something. She goes, yeah, well, and it always goes to death. Every time we say something like that, somebody always basically says, oh, great. Well, what about my dog dying? What about my mother? Like they always go down to that road, you know? And it's a funny,
Yeah.
it's how we always look. It's about perception. And I think that the influential circle is incredible to give you new perspectives or help you through the tragedies. And one more point I want to make about this, because I know in Synergy there's a person who's had tragedies like you can't believe. Like the people that have passed around her is incredible. Like I think she's the amount of people that have passed in her life is unreal. Like if I told you how many people it is, from friends to like you name it, in all
Yeah.
of her life, like tens, like a lot of people. Okay, and the way she just approaches life, and like what you can learn from this person who's been through all of these tragedies, right? And she's bringing a positive to the entire thing. Not about
Yeah.
all the people passing, but how to deal with trauma or whatever it is that she's doing. And these are the things you learn, right? And I'm probably not going to go through as many as she has, but how can I approach that? And maybe I don't have as much trauma, or to the point of that being traumatized to a certain degree of what she's trying to help other people with, but it's the perspective of how what she's been through and how she's turned that into a business and how she's going to help other people, that you can take and say, wait a minute, maybe when my life gets down, on a end of the week on a Friday, that my launch didn't go so well, that maybe I could look at it from a different perspective because I didn't have all of this other stuff too, right? Anyway,
Well, it that's interesting because certainly, um, I don't know what I would have thought about somebody saying, looking at, what are the benefits of my husband dying
right.
at age 50. Um,
It's not really a
so I
benefit. It's more of like something good happened. Like something good will come from
it
this.
comes out from it. Yeah,
Yeah, I guess you can call it a
and
benefit if you want. I don't know.
I know I'm likely stretching that a little bit. I mean, and the thing is that it is there. What I was going to say is that's um, something that someone said to me recently, just because I was like doing some work with widows, is that the question of what is possible that was not possible before, and
Mm,
because things change, and it is about what is possible that wasn't possible before. Um, and that's one way to look at it, and it's not. I'll keep this short because this isn't what masterminds are about necessarily. Except you
right,
find
right,
these
right.
people you find these people. Um, I don't think that saying that there's a, there's even sometimes saying there's always a silver lining. I don't know if that's true. I think there's a different path. Maybe there's a different cloud. Maybe there's something different. Um, and that's just my perception. I mean, for me, I would not have written a book that has helped caregivers. I would not have spoken on stages about caregiving. I would have not been doing workshops. Like, I know I made a difference, and that I wouldn't have done all those things if Callum hadn't died.
But that's the silver
Because
lining, though, Lorna. That's what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
I'm getting back into my semantics with words. And maybe that's just maybe my own level of healing. But it is what was possible that wasn't possible before. But I think the point is that you were able to find somebody in a mastermind that, even though you don't have maybe anything to do at all with what she's teaching and how she's helping people, maybe you've never had an ounce of something to help her with, and maybe she's never helped you with anything other than inspiration,
Right.
that um like, just other than the inspiration of, if she could handle all that, then I'm sure I can handle this.
Exactly.
And dang it, I'm going to do this. I'm making the decision. I'm going to take that step. And if it doesn't work out, it's fine.
Hmm.
I, you know, and she gives you that inspiration. So she might not have given knowledge or support or anything else, but she still helped you, and the only way you could have had that is
That's right.
because you were in the room with her.
That's
And I
right.
better, and I see Kay saying that she loves the what's possible that wasn't possible before. Okay, I will give credit now. That was Rich that said that. I try to not make this all about Rich and Brian, but I kind of did. Um, but it is, I think that's the thing. Like, is that you don't get those opportunities unless you're in a room with somebody, with those other people, and people that you would never have met before. And it
Right.
doesn't have to be the $20,000 or the $50,000 room to start with.
That's right.
I'm in a $2,000 room that has remarkably changed my life in the last 18 months. I
That's right.
tell you, it hasn't been easy. Like, there's been a lot of growth. Um, and like, and it's not because of any specific topic or any, like, it's just for some reason, I thought that was a good room to be in. And I've
But you
been
see,
in
the
lots of
thing
rooms.
too, Lorna, is sorry to interrupt. Is like
No,
you could connect the dots now, and this is the thing that
yeah,
when anybody listening to this who is not doing or has their circle of influence, or paying to get into rooms or anything like that, they might be thinking, well, what am I going to get out of it, and all these other things. And I think there is there's merit to going into something with some kind of I need this help, which you went into Brian's with the copy, but you had no idea where it would lead, and you did not go into, all right, I'm looking to hook up with like the best copywriter or this whatever, I want to meet this person because I want to like that's not what you went there for, which is the
no,
whole going back to, well, who's in the room, who's there, right? That's the wrong question. But look at where it led you, and now you can talk about it. Now you can go back, because I could talk about all the stuff too, going and connecting all the dots of, well, how did you get to meet Alex or Nick? Well, I could relate it all the way back to Greg, and even probably further than that, and connect all the dots and go, well, this is the reason. you know it was really one of my friends who introduced me to Giovanni. And Giovanni and I, we've been in the same circle for years and years and years, in the same industries and all this, but never really knew each other. But it was that one person who was again, in Greg's mastermind. We're like brother and sister. We love each other. Who said, you should talk to this person because he's like you. And that was the magic back in 2016 or something like that, whatever it was. And so it relates. So like it's like the degree of separation, right? Well, who did that? How did I meet Tahani. Well, it was because of the real estate thing, and then because of Greg. Like all these things relate. Like, oh, wait a minute. And that's the power of masterminds. It's the power of networks. It's the power of the influential circle.
and, and you know, and all of that is, it's important. It's something that people don't necessarily consider when they're thinking about what they need to bring into their world to help support them.
Yeah.
And the thing is that by that time, I'm going to pick on you a little bit.
Okay.
By
I love
that
it.
time, you had learned to be open to listen. So you were able
Where? Which
to,
time? Which time are you
when,
referring
like
to?
by 2016, when you got into Giovanni's world, were you more opening to listening by then?
I think
Or were
so.
you,
That was the time. Like when I got into that world. Remember, that was my. That was I was in two worlds at that point too, right? I was in the more of the other. That's where my heart and my head whole story was fighting.
yeah,
2016 to 19 was like the 3 years of hell. Like holy crap, what's right? What's right here?
yeah.
So was I open to listening? I suppose, but I wasn't listening to my heart. That's for sure.
But were you open to listening to them,
Yes,
like to listen
because
to the people around you?
yes, because that's why my I had that challenge all the time with my head because I was listening to the people around me. Let's call them influential because they were. It was like, well, we're doing this, and I go, okay, well, I'll do that too, and didn't work for me.
Okay.
So I was listening to my head, and I was still open to listening, going, well, that kind of doesn't feel right to me. Which is this could be a whole other topic now about what we're talking about here. It was like I was open because I'm like, well, all this other stuff really didn't work, so I may as well just do this, and it didn't really help me.
So, but I mean, what I thought that I saw or understood before is that getting into Geo's world,
Yeah.
what helped change it?
What helped change?
Did that help get you to listen to your heart more than your head?
Yeah, because eventually it was it was like it's like good and evil, like basically, right? It was like, okay, I'm over here today, and then I'm going over here, like, huh, that's totally opposite of that, huh, whatever. But I'm also a person who commits. I don't
Yeah.
like to bounce all over the place, so I commit it. I'm like, well, I'm paying for this thing over here. I'm in, and that sounds really great. So I kind of, it's kind of like where I guess where you go into even a mastermind or a webinar or an event, and it's not, and you're like, this is great stuff, and then you leave the room and you're like, okay, so back to normal, right? It's like you just totally just ignore it. That's kind of the where I was. It was like listening to Geo is like, okay, that's fantastic, I love this. Okay, great. So, and then the next the next day would be in that mastermind and be like, okay, so here I'm going to build this funnel, here I'm going to go do this, here I'm going to do that, right? And it was like there was just like, it was a break. It was more of a distraction, but a good distraction. But it wasn't something that I would act on. Let's put it that way. It's
So,
probably a better way of putting it. I wouldn't act on it. Like that's kind of cool, feels good, but I'm gonna go do this other thing over here.
so what I heard was a couple of things, and one that was kind of what I was trying to get at the beginning was the commitment yourself. Um, and the other piece is that it took a while for you to realize you were in the wrong room,
Yeah,
and then you got into the right room.
yeah,
And that's kind of the point, and that's going to happen for lots of people too. It's going to look right, and then you're going to get in and realize that it doesn't feel right, and
right,
that's okay. Like that's what happens, and part of our own journeys is that we get other people coming into, into our world, and we see other things, and then we realize that that's maybe more of a what we want to do. And I think only 100% of the Atlas students say that. you know I thought that's what I wanted, but this is, now I'm here, this is what I really
I
want.
love that.
Only
I love the
100% of these
breakthroughs.
So, there's that piece, but the commitment, because lots of people go like, this is lots of money. Like, how do you put money into this? And what do I get out of it? And I mean, you get out what you put in to start with, but that commitment to being able to, like, even if it's in the wrong room, the fastest way to find out you're in the wrong room is to be committed to doing what they're saying.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because that's the thing. It's what I call life tuition. You know that. Like, so sometimes life tuition is not an ROI of good, but it's also saving you time in the future if you don't do the same mistake. Because that's the only
Yeah.
way you learn from a mistake, is when you don't do it anymore. But a lot of us make the same mistake. So yeah, for me, if I went back into that, to a mastermind that was like that, or a circle that was like that, I would just be repeating the same mistake. So for me,
Yeah.
it was a commitment to go, no, I was there before, which totally wasn't on the total, you know, good side of it,
Yeah.
because I was distracted and learning all kinds of stuff, to 2016. And then it was like, wait a minute, all these other people are talking about all this other stuff. I'm like, okay, I'll go do that. So it was a commitment, but then it was an easy decision in that 2019, the February, when, like, you know what, I'm out. Like, when I make a decision, and my wife will tell you, like, when I make a decision, it's over, it's
Yeah.
done. There's
Yeah.
no question about it. And the ramifications of what happens, I'll deal with them all. Like, here's the thing, I no longer feel this anymore, and I'm going this way. So for 2019, it was I don't want to feel this way anymore. It was basically about me, which is, and then the next 6 months of that, from February to whatever it was, August or something, it was hell. It was treacherous. Could never anticipate the pain that I went through to go right, to get into, to just move on, because the decision was like hard and fast. Like, I make hard and fast
Yeah.
decisions, but it taught me something. So now, now when you look back, at least for me, it's like, I would, it's very hard. Like, it's hard to say, like, would you do that again? Like, that's the question a lot, you get asked a lot, right? Would you do that again? The answer is yes right now. But ask me that, you know, in March, February, March, April of 2019, and I would have said, no. Why would I do this again to myself? Why would I be going through this hell? Why would I? Right? Because you're going through it.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things that, in hindsight, we could easily say, I didn't have to do that. But I'm getting to accept more and more that all of those things are what led me to here. And,
Always.
that sometimes the road was a little bumpy. Maybe I fell off the path and had to get back on. But all of those are experiences that we can use in one way or another, as we move forward. And I was thinking, like, with the commitment, and, people, what do I get out of it? And I mean, your commitment to Geo, your commitment to synergy, and being there, being vulnerable, is important, because you've got to be willing to bare yourself a bit, if not a lot, to be able to, and I think the more you can bare yourself, the more help that you get. And I didn't just, you know, give my credit card to, Carla, Brian's assistant, and give her my credit card and pay. And then, 16 months later, ask Brian, well, it wasn't even 16 months, but anyway, whatever it was,
Right. Right. Right.
can you connect me with Rich? Like,
Right.
that didn't happen. I
Right.
was on I attended calls. Like, I've missed very few calls. I participated in the calls. I likely didn't, I don't think I've been a big participator in the calls, but I have. And, taking what that group had to offer as far as hot seats, when we did breakout rooms, I still shared. I actually likely was more timid, but I still shared. I
Yeah.
happened to be fortunate enough twice to be in a breakout room with Brian. So that's one of the ways that we connected a little bit more. But I show up in the Facebook group. I answer questions, like, I'm involved
Yeah.
in helping.
That's an
I'm involved.
important thing.
And that's why those kinds of domino things happen, where you get the brilliant idea, or you meet somebody new, Um, and then you also get to be that person who shares a brilliant idea,
Yeah.
but you have to be there. It doesn't just happen because you pay the money.
Right.
It just there's far and you don't always get the money back. Have I received financially my money back? I'll tell you, I've more than I have, you know, not cash in value. I have, but I've not received, in my bank account any money that reimburses me. But I have been blessed far more than what that is worth.
Right. And so you're recognizing that value, right? Like even Nick
Yeah.
today, he said that even like the dream clients or the ideal clients, whatever it was, like what do they really value more, right? Which is time. They've Money is nothing because you can always get back money and all this. And I think that that's one of the biggest things to look at is like, what's this actually saving me? Like even for example, a crazy example, and I want actually before they do that, I want to give, want to read these because who is this Trump? I don't know who this. Oh, this is Collie because Love and Soul. Like, thank you. Trauma heals and it can when we awaken and rekindle our love and desires. And Kay says circles of influences help us illuminate parts of ourselves, thoughts, and journeys that would remain in the shadows and not accessible if we were not for the right people in these circles. Yeah, that's right. Where was I going with this now? I forgot where I was going with this. Anyway, it'll come back to me. I totally lost my train of thought where I was going to go with it.
We're talking about participating in groups, and
Participating in groups. See, like that.
that
Just I'll show
led
you how much my
to,
ADD kicks in.
yeah,
I don't
I
know where
know.
my thought was going with that one. But it is important to participate because for you that's what led to the connection because
Yeah,
you were participating, helping other people, but you're also looking to get helped, and the group or the leader, Brian and all, they recognize that.
yeah,
So it's important for you not to just sit there when you go into a group because I'm like that as well. Like I'll just when I join something, I may just sit back, like, and I'll just observe for a little while until I get
yeah,
comfortable. But it's more about being uncomfortable where the growth is happening, and that's really hard for everyone,
yeah.
right?
It it is, and it certainly in that particular group is because sometimes I'm starstruck by the people who are really unknown in the world, but there are so many amazing people. But I think where we were going, Joey, we were talking about the money investment that sometimes it isn't dollar in for dollar out.
Oh, right.
Um,
Okay.
there's more to it. Does that trigger the thought?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's like, what do you put a value on? And I love the way your mindset works is because you're putting a value over and above money. And you're saying, well, whatever it is for you, I got value because I was connected to Rich and so the where I was going with this was looking at, for me, I'm looking for assistance now and all this stuff, right? As you know. And so the
Yeah,
value of what's the exchange here and how much can I afford to pay somebody and all these other things. And again, the brilliance of people that have built major companies and giving me advice to say, well, this is the reason why, over and above, here's why you need somebody to help and all this other things. But breaking it down, and it was Nick Sonnenberg who helped me
mm,
understand the fact of, well, this is not a $15 an hour. You're not paying $15 an hour. What you're paying is XYZ. And or what you're actually paying or what you're actually getting return on is XYZ. So this could be a whatever, $100,000 investment in the company to hire this person, but the company's actually getting this back, and broke all down everything else around it. I can't remember the examples now, but it was that perspective that I'm like, yeah, wait a minute, it's not $15 an hour. I'm actually gaining $50 an hour because of all these other little things, whatever it is, just as an
yeah,
example. And that's
yeah.
what I love because I would never, because my perspective was always about, well, I can't afford this, in terms of this one example. But then another person will say, well, here's why you need to afford it, or this is what you're gaining from it because you cannot not afford it because of these other reasons here, and this is what you're actually losing. And you're like, oh my god, because they've been there before. Their house already burnt down, right? And
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
okay, I got it. Anyway, that was
And
the thought.
I mean that I go back again. Like, would you have ever? I mean, or maybe you would have, but would you have ever found Nick Sonnenberg without being in a mastermind?
No,
Yeah,
no. A lot of the people that I know now and connected to, and all these, I would have never found had I not been there.
yeah,
Had I not been there, like the only person I knew, is John Asseroff, and I talk about that all the time. He's the only
yeah,
person I knew. But even I, wasted that opportunity because when I went to that mastermind and there was everybody, there, I just sat there and just I know John, and that was it. And I was sitting at a table with, there had to be 30, like 30 amazing people in the world, like Amish Shaw, and like I could just name them all, like just amazing people, the Mind Valley, like you name them, all these people. And I just sat there. And the only person I talked to was the person that I knew, Dave, and was starstruck by John. That was it. And I didn't try to interject in any other conversation. And I'm in this table that's kind of like, the Last Supper, right? Like the whole like it's this long, long table. It's a huge people, and I'm like, ah. So that
yeah.
was me being so close-minded about it all, or maybe
Yeah.
just being the introvert. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, the thing is it is what it was. Like you learned something from it in
Yeah,
as time went on, and um, I mean, I think that's why we're both passionate about being in the right room, and
yeah,
that it's worth paying to be in the right room, and not that it's going to be the right room the first time out, or it might be for 9 times, and then the 10th time it's not. Like you don't know. I mean, there's no certainty, um, but it's to find a place that brings you away from the small circle that we're in on our everyday life. And it's that's happened. I mean, with Mastermind, I think the group piece is important. I think that's a it's a must have. You
100%.
need to be surrounded by people. It's I meant to double check that because I always mess up. Was it Zig Ziglar that or Jim Rohn that talked to? Is it Jim Rohn that you are the average of the five
Yeah, I
people you?
can't remember who said that first, but I think it was Jim. Like it that
I think
always.
it's a Jim Rohn quote.
Yeah.
That's that's an important piece, and
Well, who's
sometimes it
older? Who's older than, like, the Jim or Zig?
happens. I never checked their birth dates.
Because
I
now that I'm thinking about it, it could have been Zig. Like, whoever was older is the person who said it first.
said it first. I
Guaranteed.
mean, I first heard it from Jack Canfield, but he didn't claim that that was
Yeah.
his. Like he always mentioned it, but um,
Yeah, I,
you
I
know,
I think that Zig was like a little bit older than
yeah.
Jim.
I know I always mix that one up with who said it. But anyway, there. And if you guys have never heard of Zig Ziglar or Jim Rohn, then it's likely worthwhile a 2 hour rabbit hole to go check each of those guys out
Yeah.
because they've got some fabulous perspectives. But even in a little bit different rooms. So there's the masterminds, but even up leveling sometimes the room that we're in, one of the first rooms that I was in where I had that experience of, oh my goodness, there's these people that really understand me, was when I went to breakthrough to success.
Try to say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, I know, with Jack Canfield. And,
Hmm.
that was a 7 day personal development, get inside yourself and get rid of the demons and, find yourself kind of weeks. It was so very powerful. I mean, my intention was to release a lot of the grief that I had from Callum dying. I went the year after. And, that was accomplished. I didn't get rid of it all. But anyway, I mean, that experience of being in a room where you feel like you belong, that people understand you, um, is so valuable. Like there's just a release of protection that we can
Was
go
that a
through.
mastermind?
No, no, it was a room of like 400 people.
Yeah, so like I mean, that's
But
good and everything. Those are like seminars. Those are more like the Tony Robbins thing. You go into
yeah,
that. That's cool, and that's I would argue to say that that's really a circle of influence.
not the room wouldn't be the room,
Right.
like going to that week with all those people wouldn't be. Where I was heading is that was one place where I found my way
Two.
into a circle of influence,
Got it.
and
Yeah.
to be passionate about it, so that it's maybe just a little bit more of a personal, how did I figure it out, or where did I find it. But just for people, if they're not sure about the mastermind kind of thing, or like how to get in it, that you don't necessarily have to spend the next 3 days looking up mastermind groups on the internet. There might be somebody who you have connected with in a different way. Again, it's that connection, and it's that relationship capital. Like there's likely somebody in your, I mean, if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, actually, you already are. There's two people on the screen. Like I see Joey, I see me. You've got two people for sure who can connect you to different groups.
Yeah.
And I mean, Joey's got the Academy Mastermind uh, that is there as well. So, but there may be, you know, as a person that is in that circle of influence that you don't find in a group, but will help lead you to a group.
Yeah, and I like
Um,
I mean I give credit back to Tahani. That's what I'm saying. Like she was, I remember because we were in the real estate. We go to the seminar, not the seminar, whatever the meeting every month, and we would meet there. And she told me she was being coached by Greg a year earlier because this was so Greg talked. It was like I don't know when it was 2008 or something. Maybe it was like earlier than that. I don't remember what it was, but whatever it was, he talked a year. I thought he was like a dude, like you're making me mad. And then the next year, Tahani, we were sitting there, and for some reason she goes, "Oh, you know Greg Habster?" And I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "He's actually my coach." And I'm like, "What?" And then she told me the price. I'm like, "What? You're paying this? What?" I couldn't fathom it. And then a year later, I was in the same program. So you're right. It was because of that influence of that person,
yeah.
because again, I was talking to her every month, and she'd be talking a little bit of. She wasn't trying to get me into the program. It was just like, well, I did this and we talked about that or whatever. It wouldn't come up every now and then. I'm like, huh, and and that's how it all happened. It was because of her, like her influence. But yeah, so I credit. If I really look back at how I got into masterminds myself, it was because of her, probably.
Yeah.
Because it was before that, it was like I would never pay this kind of money. Why would I do that? Because I was closed minded, right? It was like, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and why do I have to pay to get it?
Yeah,
Like why do I have to pay to find that out? Well, I mean, you don't have to. Like you can go and buy, I don't know, 50 books written by, those people, and you can spend the time reading them and trying to remember them and trying to do your own thing and figure out what they're going to say. Or you can watch, 10,000 hours of videos if you want, or you can join a mastermind and get your answer like next week.
yeah. And to that point too is I remember when I first went there because I went for a reason too. It was like, well, I wanted to clean up my desk. That was the real reason I paid $20,000 to go to a 4-time mastermind. Like, can you help me clean up and organize my stuff? They're like, he's like, yeah, whatever. Like he knew I was like there was so much other to grow. I had no idea. But then in that first moment, as you know, the conversations go awry, like how they go here, which is amazing. And I solved a probably a year or two problem within that one session because it wasn't what I went in with. I went in with something completely different, but they did their work and they said, "Have you looked at that?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." And they're like, "Okay, maybe you should do that first." And I'm like, "Dang it." And I solved that one thing. It was not easy. It was not easy, It was a decision I had to make that I was putting off, and it was a hard decision, and it still hurts to this day, right, financially. But it was like, okay, let me just get on with it. And if you look back at all that, I wouldn't be here had it not been for that push to go into that first mastermind, to pay that amount of money that I didn't have at the time, still whatever, you know.
But the thing we've talked about a lot of things, and I know like we're like stretching the time here, but um, you
Yeah,
know
we got
the
it.
the thing that you brought up was um, like it's not just about getting in the room. It's not just about the help you can get and the help you can give, but it's about when you have those tough moments that there is also a group there to support you because
Yeah,
there's at least one person, if not more, who have already gone through something similar and they've come out the other end. So you've gained your hope and you've got the people behind you.
yeah,
Like you can get to the point where you're not afraid to shed the tears in front of that
yeah,
group.
yeah,
Um, and you know they've got your back.
yeah.
Like it's I mean, they become like family.
It's true. That happened a lot too. I mean, that even in the first meetings, almost everybody was shedding tears. Almost everybody.
Yeah.
So it was just that's just the way it was because you open yourself up to hearing. It's because I think that when you get in the right rooms and the people who really care about you, they're asking the hard questions that you're not asking yourself, right? Or you don't want to face. And everybody can see you totally different than what you see yourself in, even in the mirror.
Yeah. And
So and that's the power. So that we're back to the mastermind, but like but that's still those are still influential
yeah,
people. Those are still the influential
yeah,
circle that helps you move
yeah,
forward, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And this goes back to what I said at I don't know the beginning, in the middle, and whatever is that it's about thinking differently. Like
it
that's
is.
a they help you think differently. They support you through thinking differently. You're not on your own. You're not left to the wolves. Um, you get to make mistakes and it's okay, and you get to have successes that you never thought were going to happen. And that's been my experience in masterminds, and I absolutely believe in them. And they're
Love it.
worth every penny.
I
Every
love it.
penny.
They are truly, truly. I wouldn't be here speaking to you right now had I not done that same thing. We would not be. I would not be able to help other people, and I am very grateful for my influential circle. And I can only imagine what it's going to be like in a year from now, 10 years from
Mhm.
now. And I just love it. So thank you, Lorna. This has been an amazing
You're
conversation. Thank
welcome.
you for watching. If you, I know we got some great comments. Thank you for that. And if you're watching the replay and you have some comments or questions, please put them in because we'll come back to this and still answer them. So it's not over, even
Yeah.
though the live is over, but that's cool. So hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, hashtag live if you're here live. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Lorna, any final thoughts?
No, just go find your influential circle. Just go find them.
Love it. Thanks, Lorna. See you again soon. Bye
Yeah.
now.
Thanks. Bye.